Welcome back, everyone, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. We're thrilled to be joined by Baseball Canada Director of National Men's Teams, Greg Hamilton. Greg, how's it going?
Going real well. Yeah, other than the weather in Calgary where I find myself today.
Yeah, it's no better here in Brantford. But it's an exciting time. Baseball is right around the corner, pitchers and catchers reporting. But we're here to talk about the World Baseball Classic. How you feeling? How you feeling now? About a month out.
We're excited. Yeah, I mean, it's a long process to get a roster of 30 together. A lot of ebb and flow to it, and we're happy with and excited about the roster that we do have.
What your initial thoughts on the team? Let's jump right to kind of the general perspective of how you see this team.
Well, I think if you look at the positional aspect of it, we're going to field a major league team with major league depth, which is not always the case. So that's exciting. I mean, we have impact in our lineup. We have some dimension in our lineup, and we have experience in our lineup. Players that are at the right points of their major league careers to certainly give us an opportunity positionally day in and day out. And it's an exciting lineup. And I think on the pitching side. We have experience where we're going to need it, and some balance right left, which is also exciting and important.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about it being a long process to pick the team. Take us through a little bit about what that's like. How early does it start after the conclusion of the previous tournament, and what's that whole process kind of look like from your perspective?
Well, it's ongoing, so I mean, you kind of have to project forward because it's on a cycle, right? I mean, you kind of look at players that would have come in the last time around. We had some younger players, that we were excited to get experience for, that their games grew after. So, I mean, it's just continual. Probably the most challenging part of this is not to get ahead of yourself in looking at, okay, if we were to play today and all of our major league players put on a uniform, we would look like this. That's the dream scenario, which rarely, if ever, happens. So you kind of have to play that process and be patient with it. And, we don't have the depth that certain countries might have. So you have to be creative around that process as well.
What would you say the strength of this team is? Would you say it's offensively, it's going to have to kind of carry the load, or how do you kind of see, the leaders of this team playing out?
Well, I think positionally there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of balance and there's a lot of experience, and we have impact in there, which is exciting. I think on the mound, we have, some frontline arms that can start, that will kind of give us an opportunity to have starters with major league experience go out there each round. We have experience and balance in the bullpen. I say experience. Most all of our players are active. In the sense of, with the exception of maybe one arm that's not active day in and day out, but everybody else is active at a high level of professional baseball, which hasn't always been the case. So that's a good thing for us as well.
So I don't want to dwell too much on the guys that aren't here. But obviously on the pitching side, no Nick Pivetta, no Cade Smith, no Eric Sabrowski or Matt Brash. Those are kind of some big names that aren't going to be there. Was there reasons given for those players as to why they're not attending? I mean, obviously there's a lot of reasons that could go into it, but was there kind of a general theme or individual circumstances that played into that?
No, I think each one was individual in kind of their context and where they are. Health played a role in a couple individuals' decisions. Where contracts played a role in other decisions, and they all wanted to play. I think people, can easily get ahead of it, and I wear and have been fortunate to wear our country's passion on my sleeve for many, many years. And it's easy to simply just say everybody should put on the uniform. Everybody should play irrespective of where their health status is, irrespective of where their contract is, et cetera. And that's not a reality. I mean, they all want to play. It just doesn't line up all the time, and it's not the right time for everybody all the time. So, like you said, we're going to focus on what we have, who we have, and we think we have a good roster of players that give us a very good opportunity to succeed.
On that note, then, who do you think needs to step up with some of those guys absent? I mean, there's a lot of, interesting players, a lot of younger players on this team. Who do you see kind of needing to step up to fill some of those roles, especially on the pitching side?
Well, I mean, you've got the obvious front end guys that are established major leaguers, obviously, in the Tyons and the Sorokas and, the Quantrells and guys of that nature. I mean, James Paxton would be an important one for us. I mean, not that far out of the game, obviously huge arm with a lot of experience and a great level of accomplishment in the game. So we're hoping, we're not asking for the James Paxton of mid-career, but we're asking for hopefully a real, jolt from a guy that, that doesn't have to give us 162 games or a season. We're not asking him to start and throw 7 innings. He's going to come in hopefully in key situations, and that experience will be a plus for us. And, I think we've got some exciting minor league arms that are on the cusp of pitching in the big leagues, and they're going to have to show experience a little bit beyond the minor leagues in order to manage this environment and impact for us.
I mean, if James Paxton wants to bust out a mid-career start for you, I'm sure you'd take it.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to do that, but I think we'd also take him finishing up, in an inning or two at the right time in this tournament, in the right circumstances would be huge for us. I mean, obviously, you mentioned a couple back end arms that aren't there, and we need to. I think we can get to the middle, and it's going to be the middle to the finish that's going to be important here. So it's the bullpen, I think, on this team that's going to have to be able to hold. I think we're going to piggyback, obviously, some starters, early in the tournament, and for us, it's getting ourselves home when we don't necessarily have that established finisher on the roster at the big league level. I think there's guys here that can do it, but they're going to have to step up and do it.
One guy that kind of caught my name too was Philippe Aumont. So what kind of went into his selection of this team? What do you hope he brings? Because he hasn't, pitched consistently really over the last couple of years. So what do you kind of hope he can bring to this pitching staff?
Well, Phil in kind of our world is a bit of a unicorn. You don't take a lot of players to this level of a tournament or event that aren't active and aren't pitching regularly. And we had a Pan Am qualifier, didn't quite get to the Pan Am part of it, but we had a training camp, in the fall in Florida, and Phil came, as part of that Pan Am qualifying pitching staff, and he didn't look like he had missed a beat. I mean, the stuff was exceptional. Velocity was tremendous. The breaking ball was outstanding. Great physical shape. He's taking care of himself, and when you look at the stuff, I mean, it was hard not to take him. I mean, it's plus stuff. I mean, the last WBC, I mean, he certainly held his own, and the same stuff still coming out, and command was there, and it's he's a pretty special talent that does fit at times without actually being active.
Did I hear somewhere he's farming? He's a farmer now or something? Is that accurate?
Yeah, he's done some of that, actually. He's done a little bit of the tail end of it. He's working, he's got a government position as well. Okay. But yeah, he had a decent run there as a farmer, and he's kept himself in great shape. I mean, he's not gonna, when you see him, you wouldn't know that he's not pitching day in and day out. I'll tell you that much.
The farmers usually are pretty strong, so I can see how he could keep himself in shape. But I guess this seems like a little bit of a new generation of Canadian baseball talent. You look at the Owen Caseys, the Denzel Clark, some of the younger guys that are kind of coming into their own now. Do you kind of sense that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the last time around, those names sort of stepped forward, right? The Denzel Clarks, and like you say, and the Owen Caseys and Otto Lopez's, and all those, Eddie Julian, who's established beyond now. But I mean, it was a young group of players, and then obviously mixing those guys in with the likes of Josh Naylor, and I think that can be, understated at all. The impact that Josh will bring on this roster, obviously just a tremendous hitter, always has been, but the makeup is A+, the compete levels through the roof, and he wears the pride across his jersey, and he comes to win every single pitch, every single game. And, Tyler O'Neill is very similar. So, I mean, they're impact established big leaguers that, when you kind of bring them into the fold with the other guys, I think it's a pretty exciting roster to roll out on the positional side.
Up until the date that the rosters were announced, which I believe was last Thursday, how much conversation are you having with big league teams and who's available and who's not? My question kind of centers on Edward Julian getting traded to Colorado recently. Are you kind of holding your breath when that kind of stuff happens, whether they're going to let him go? And what kind of those conversations like with big league teams?
I mean, you're holding your breath on this roster until you actually get to training camp, to be all honest, until you get down. So I'd say training camp, but until we get down to Florida and get together and 30 players are actually there. Because there's just the unknown, right? I mean, the Eddie Julian trade, and he had a lot of soul searching and thinking to do, and you're communicating with him and the clubs, and ultimately it's his decision, and we're fortunate and thankful that he chose to stay and to play. But again, it's not seamless, right? I mean, new team, you're concerned about your career, and Eddie kind of established himself, and then had a little bit of a sort of, lull in that establishment and has to kind of rework his way back into that equation again, or at least reestablish in certain ways. And, so it's just continual. Owen Casey's trade was the same. I mean, is it gonna hold? Is he gonna be able to stay? And a lot of discussions, a lot of conversation. And, I think from my role in it, I'd try to be as objective and, more of a sounding board for them, because you want what's best for them in their careers. You want them, we want this to be a positive part of their major league careers, and playing for their country is special, and they know it, and that's why they do it, and we feel it and know it. But there's also a major league career and livelihood at stake, and they have to line up, and the timing has to be right. So thankfully, in those two cases, they were traded, and it has lined up.
So a lot of notice has been taken for the pool that you're in. You're heading to Puerto Rico with Puerto Rico, Cuba, Panama, and Colombia. No United States. What did you make of that pool when it was announced, and what are your kind of thoughts on your opponents this year?
I mean, it's a pretty balanced pool. I mean, it's kind of a pick'em pool, right? I mean, you can kind of look through that and say that on a given day, most anybody can beat anybody. I mean, I guess you would give the nod a little bit to Puerto Rico, maybe if you're looking at overall depth, but we think we can play with anybody in that pool. And not that you weren't motivated by and didn't have a belief around playing the United States, but getting them in round one all the time was challenging. I mean, you were forced to make some difficult decisions on how you were going to handle that game. Could you really go for it? Could you afford to, roll out your entire pitching staff and try to win in the round robin and potentially lose 5-4 and have nothing left in games that you had to win? So you had to make some tough choices there. And it was, we're kind of, not that we don't like playing them, because we love playing them, but maybe a little bit later in the tournament would be our choice when we can actually go after it, and instead of having to kind of pick and choose.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got to be tough because it's a rival. The U.S. is a rival and everything, but when you're in a tournament like this, you really need to kind of game plan around a game like that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, again, it's going for it when it means, like a one game, hey, if we win, we move on, versus, hey, we're in a round robin and we've got to end up in the top two. And do we really, have the depth on the mound to just air it out and go after these guys right now? And what's left for the next three games, that you do have to win. So, yeah, it's tough. And our pools have been, we've had to deal with them and Mexico, them and Venezuela. No complaints. I mean, it's exciting. But, I think for us on this one, it's not to disrespect anybody in there, because certainly they can beat us in a given day, but we feel we can beat anybody in a given day, and we can go play each game straight up and just, try to win those games without worried about who you got tomorrow necessarily.
Is there a little bit more pressure then with this pool and kind of the expectation of getting out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, in the international game, we've had some wonderful accomplishments with our national programs, and this is kind of the one we haven't been able to solve. We haven't been able to get out of round one. We've made some noise. We've knocked off the U.S. and we've played some really exciting games against them, because it's always the U.S. and we've been down to the M with them multiple times. But yeah, we haven't got out of the first round in this tournament. We want to get out of the first round and move on in the tournament, and that's the goal in doing it. And we haven't been able to do it so far. So yes, it's the expectations are high.
Why do you think that is that Canada hasn't been able to get out of the first round of this tournament? Is there like something about that there's maybe a couple of reasons for it, or do you think it's just, it's a tournament and that's kind of the luck of the draw sometimes?
Well, if you look at the pools that we've been in by and large, and maybe there's been probably a hiccup or two in games maybe we should have won and we didn't, and that's on us. But by and large, I don't think you're underachieving when you're not beating the United States in this tournament. I think if you're real about it, and then your margin is next to nothing if you've got them in your pool after that. So, it's just been kind of the nature of maybe the pools that we've been in. The depth is not what you need pitching wise to survive those pools a lot of times. If you look at the games we've played, we've been there with the best teams in those pools, but trying to have enough to kind of trade blows with the States and then kind of come off of that and do the same with Mexico, or come off of that and do the same with Venezuela, or very deep teams. It's been tough. So I think, you highlighted it. This pool, is balanced. It might be the most balanced pool in the tournament if you actually look, with all the teams and balance it out. But I think it's probably the fairest pool we've been in to, if we take care of ourselves and we play well day in and day out, then I think the expectation is that we have a real fair chance to get out of it.
So when do rosters have to be like finalized for this tournament? Like no changes?
Well, once once the round, the round starts. I mean, at this point in time, we had to have a finalized roster on February 3rd. So those are finalized rosters. But if there's a medical rejection, or say a player were to pull out for personal reasons or other reasons, I mean the onus of proof is higher, because they're not just going to let you swap a player out because a player that you feel would make your roster better decided they wanted to change their decision and play. You're not going to get away with that. But if there's somebody gets hurt in training camp now, you're going to have the ability, when they vet out the injury and show that the player can't play, you're going to be able to substitute. And if we end up with a couple players here that are still on our chronic list that don't get approved, then we'll be able to flip out and add players for them. And so they're, once the round starts, you can't make changes on your roster until the next round. But up until that point in time, if it's a valid reason, these rosters are still fluid, and they will be. You'll still see changes across these rosters. I can guarantee. I'm not saying ours per se, but there will definitely be WBC roster changes post the February 3rd final roster submissions.
Is this, a lot of people talk a lot about when this tournament should be played, and there's positives and there's positives and negatives to all parts of the year of playing it. But is this an opportunity for a guy, say like Edward Julian, to kind of get on track really early in the season? Kind of saw that a little bit with Owen Casey and Denzel Clark a couple of years ago. It was kind of a coming out party for them and a really good experience for them. So can you just talk a little bit about that aspect of this tournament for some of these players?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you're a club, you're watching, obviously they're in spring training and they're trying to get their rosters ready for the season, and, their focus is there. But the scale of this tournament, the visibility of this tournament, the global play of the tournament, the intensity that players are competing at, the fan engagement. It's playoff baseball and every bit that, and maybe more in a certain context because you're wearing your country's jersey. So, I think when you can perform at this level against these level of players, they're really all-star teams that nations are fielding relative to their talent pool. It's the best they can put together, with the odd exception here and there. So it's nations all-star teams against nations all-star teams. And when you can perform on that stage, it makes a statement. It does to the clubs. You can handle that type of pressure. You can deliver in that moment. You can, slow the game down, keep your game together, be productive, not let it get away from you. It's not 162 games, so you can have kind of a spike and then, isn't necessarily reflective of what it's going to be over 162. But if you can do it in this environment, it gets noted without a doubt.
Is there a benefit to some of the pitchers not being on big league rosters, and kind of the flexibility that kind of gives you as far as innings and that sort of thing?
Well, if you're not, the restrictions are there in terms of pitch counts, whether you're affiliated or non-affiliated. The only difference is that players that are affiliated could come with more restrictive formulas than what the actual tournament formula would be for usage, and they often do. So the answer to that is yes. When you have an arm or two that wouldn't be within an affiliated club, major league organization, then you do have potentially, so long as the player and the club that they're involved with, because we have players that are playing in Asia as well. So there's obviously an accountability to the clubs that they're playing for over there, and there's a clearly defined ask on their part on how the player gets used or the pitcher gets used. So when it's a player that's not affiliated, it's a little bit more flexible and a little easier. But for us, we're the guardians of their health and their careers too, and we want to, players that are playing in Asia, it's significant in terms of their their earnings power and their livelihood. So you are respectful of where a player is and protective of their careers.
Is that difficult sometimes in the heat of the moment, in the middle of a game, say against the United States or Puerto Rico, where it's like you really have to keep that in mind? And what are those conversations like in the dugout to make sure that you're keeping all that kind of on track?
Well, we have every scenario in terms of the restrictions, whether it's pitch count and then associated rest. I mean, relievers at this time of year, if they're up in the bullpen, if you're up more than once, you have to go in. If you don't, there's still a rest component to that. I mean, you're not coming back the next day. You can't really back to back guys. I mean, you've got to watch extended innings. I mean, there's a whole pile that goes into what the fan that's watching might be. I don't want to say criticizing, but critiquing in the sense of how in the world and why did they do this and why is this guy coming out? He's shutting them down, and why is this guy not going in? And why is this guy not pitching tomorrow? He hadn't pitched in a day and a half. I mean, there's reasons for that because you have you really have a script on what you can and can't do. It's not like the postseason where you watch the starter for tomorrow run down to the bullpen and the reliever comes back to back when you just don't see that here, and you can't do it because you have a clearly defined script for each individual arm, and it's not the same for every arm because organizations have a view on where the pitcher. You might have a younger arm that is an exciting arm, but they're really cautious on how that arm's going to get used and what the rest period's going to be in between. So we have it all mapped out. Sometimes it gets really, really crazy. I mean, I can remember back to the Rogers Center when we had Philippe Amont, and he walked the bases loaded and he struck the side out against the U.S. with 50,000 people, but we were down to the last pitch. Like we literally, and they were fouling balls off, and it was like we were kind of a pitch or two above where we were supposed to be, but it was like the continuation of that hitter. So I mean, you're sitting in that dugout on panic mode on managing the pitch count there because he's right at the limit and bases are loaded and there's two out and you're getting foul ball after foul ball. So
yeah, I remember I was sitting in right field for that game, and I remember how loud that was. It was a great moment for sure for Canadian baseball. Is there a guy kind of that may not be on the radar for the average fan that you're really excited to see play at this level on this roster?
Well, I think, you see if you're a Blue Jay, I mean, an Adam Mako, who's, it's a really exciting arm. I mean, it's a young arm, but I mean, he's kind of on the cusp. He's put up some really good numbers at the AAA and AA level. It's a power arm with a really good breaking ball. So, I mean, you're kind of curious to see how that's going to play out. I mean, for him, and it could be, as you mentioned, a little bit of a jettison point to maybe get to the big leagues because he's close. You'd like to see, Eddie Julian kind of come back and have another, WBC like he did last time and kind of get his career going with the new organization again. And, I mean, our Ketchin's exciting. They're both big league guys in Bo Naylor and Liam Hicks. And you don't always have two major leaguers behind the plate. And both those guys are, kind of, major leaguers, but they're looking to make other steps at the big league level. So, everybody saw Denzel last time. It's exciting, and it's we're hoping to see kind of him take that even a step further in this tournament. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely guys in there that the tournament kind of gives them a stage and a platform, and we have we have a guy named Matt Davidson. If you look at Matt's, he's excited to play. He's has the heritage that allows him to play here in Canada, and he's had a pretty compelling, professional run with, the power numbers. It's a pretty interesting bat from the right side. So, and obviously Tyler Black and guys of that nature and Jared Young. So it's just, we have some guys that, Jared stepped up huge the last tournament and, not a household name all the time. So we're, it's a platform for a lot of players to step forward.
What, aside from crossing your fingers and hoping for no injuries, what's the next month look like for this team, and kind of, take us through what's on the schedule leading up to the first game?
Well, it's kind of, it's what you touched on. We've got to get usage and restriction confirmations from each organization on each arm and the staff. So that's kind of work that we're doing right now, talking to clubs, talking to pitchers, getting their comfort zones. Because the other thing is you want to make sure you put them in roles that they're comfortable in and roles that would reflect where their pro organization sees them. Because you want to make sure that, that there's a complement to what they're trying to accomplish when they leave here too. Making sure that people stay healthy, over the next little bit, having a contingency plan for, if we do lose this player or that player, where are we going next? Because players have headed off to training camps and they're not focused on this because they haven't been necessarily selected at this point in time. But, you're trying to communicate with people as best you can to say, hey, if this happens or that happens, we might be calling. And that's kind of ongoing, because that things can happen. And there's certainly still, as I said, a few that haven't been, we still have to get approved medically. And then it's a lot of sort of preparation on advanced scouting. We've seen rosters for the other clubs. It's getting our scouting staff organized for coverage in training camps. So we'll be covering the teams that we're going to be playing in their training camp games as well, so we can get advanced work done. We'll have advanced work done on the Houston pool because we're obviously heading there, and who's going to come out of that. So we want to make sure that we got that work done. So it's organizing those scouting responsibilities with our staff and making sure that we got the coverage we need and game planning for round one. And just kind of a whole lot of getting ready to compete, but being prepared to compete.
A lot of behind the scenes stuff, essentially.
Yeah.
What do you find clubs or major league clubs are generally supportive of this tournament? When just kind of you don't have to name names, obviously, but kind of when your interactions with them, are they typically happy about this tournament and how it grows the game?
I would say it this way. I'd say they're fair in their support for it insofar as allowing players to participate and not making it difficult for players to participate, because I would always reflect and respect the challenges that a general manager would face, as much as they would love the tournament. And I think their heart would love the tournament. If you're a baseball, enthusiast, you're going to love what this is, because it's nation on nation. I mean, it's everybody's playing like it's the seventh game of the World Series. It's exciting. It's, so, I mean, you're going to love that part, but I do understand and respect if I'm a general manager and, I have 5 starting pitchers I'm counting on, I'm supposed to win this year, and 4 of them are going to play in the WBC. I'm supportive of it, but I'm also holding my breath. So, and, that's just,
I guess all you can ask for is for them to be fair in that sense. I guess they're in a bit of a tough spot as well. So.
Yeah, and they have been. Like, my experiences are they've been very fair. They've been very, very fair with it. When there's a high risk and a player has got a little bit of a health issue or there's something going on, you can't blame people for, these are large investments. And, last time around, Josh was coming off that injury and, he really wanted to play, but the timing wasn't right. And obviously he and the club, you have to kind of look out for what's best for the long term of your major league career. And, this time he's healthy and, the club's supportive and he wants to do it. And, so it's supportive, but, always, I'm sure they're holding their breath.
That's fair. You can't really blame them for that. I guess my last question for you is expectations for this year. It's a different pool, kind of a different set of players, kind of a younger generation of players in a lot of positions. What do you expect going into this tournament, and kind of what would be your expectations for this team?
Yeah, we're looking to get out of round one, and once you do that, it's a 1-game shot to get out of round 2. So our goal is to do what we haven't done in this tournament before, which is have a successful round 1 and advance to Houston, and obviously when we get to Houston, we want to get to Miami. So I think if we get to Houston, we'll have a chance to get there. It's a 1-game shot, and you can kind of load up and. You can shorten your pitching staff and go after somebody, and you're not holding back. So we haven't got out of round 1. We want to get out of round 1. We'll start with that.
Yeah, start with goal number 1. Greg, we really appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're busy. You're in Calgary scouting for all different all the different programs. So we appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Matt. My pleasure.